what is your substance? Whereof are you made, that millions of strange shadows on you tend? Since every one hath every one shade, and you but one, can every shadow lend? Describe Adonis, and the counterfeit is poorly imitated after you. On Helen's cheek, all art of beauty set, and you in Grecian Tyre are painted new. Speak of the spring, and foison of the year. The one doth shadow of your beauty show, the other as your bounty doth appear, and you in every blessed shape we know. In all external grace you have some part, and you like none you, for constant heart. Whoa, that was Sonnet 53. This one gets meta, literally. Yeah, I did not expect the rabbit hole that came with this one when I started doing a little research, but the imagery and metaphors in this one are very Platonic, shadow of reality, ideal substance, ideals are true, our perception are shadows of the true ideal things. And that was really interesting to kind of revisit. I took an ancient philosophy class in college, and we talked about some of that, like the concept of real truth, and a real that the real thing only exists in an idealized state, and anything that actually exists in the reality we perceive is a shadow of that ideal thing. And I remember being very intrigued by that concept, but also kind of at odds with it a little bit. Because I feel like what's missing there is who gives a shit? What we perceive is reality. That's what matters. Like, the things I can touch and perceive with my senses are what matters, to me, at least. When you introduce love to that equation, it gets really interesting, because I feel like that's a very cerebral, impersonal philosophy. And to apply it to a sonnet like this, that are so, typically sonnets are so, like, the ultimate personal experience, me, one person speaking to the object of my love, the fair youth, the other person. It is a purely personal exchange. And using that metaphor of, because it is in keeping with a sonneteer to ascribe some metaphor of beauty to this, to the thing he's in love with. Whether it's the stars, whether it's nature, whether it's, something accepted to be beautiful, pales in comparison to this thing that I love. And it got me thinking about kind of, love and lust, and those are yet additional layers of distortion, right? It's a very interesting concept to think that even at your sharpest mentally, you are always going to be perceiving something less than what is actually there. Your eyes are only so good. Your eyesight has imperfections. Your eyes have imperfections. The lighting affects it, and then that's all eliminating the mental and emotional interference that is always at play in our daily life and what we're interacting with what we see, it's always colored by our emotional and our mental and our experience-based prejudice, right? And love is like takes the cake there, right? Love has the ability to so egregiously distort your perception of what's actually going on. And it walks that fine line with, the Venn diagram of love, obsession, lust, these other strong urges. They're closer than maybe we like to think they are. But that whole sphere wrecks your ability to make good decisions, right? Like think of all the things you regret, and how many of those things that you regret are because you weren't thinking clearly because of strong feelings, romantic feelings, lustful feelings. They always screw with any sort of decision making, So the idea that Shakespeare is saying the fair youth is the idealized truth from which all things that are good stems from is so ironic, because whether he is in love, really, which I think through most of these sonnets, I don't like to think of that as love. It's admiration, it's obsession at a lot of times, lust, it seems like a lot of times, but I mean, as I've done these sonnets, I've maybe come to recognize in ways that I hadn't articulated before that, one-sided love is not love. One-sided love is bullshit. Real love of consequence is an interaction and a relationship. And these sonnets are such a strange beast in that sense, because I feel like the poetry we ascribe so readily to, like, this is like the ultimate declaration of love, and it's like, well, I don't know, is it? And so in some ways this sonnet is a really great representation of Shakespeare and what he's doing in the sonnets, in that he is so blinded and so out of his, that sounds bad to say, I was going to say out of his right mind, but he's kind of completely carried away with this lustful obsession with beauty. And so, yeah, that's amazing that within one poem you can get those layers. This one was really cool. I did a lot of thinking as I was saying this and as I was memorizing it. So, yeah, that was really fun. So that was Sonnet 53. The Celtics won today. That's why I'm also happy, I think. Maybe that's coloring my perception. So, yeah, next week I'm going to do another sonnet. That would be Sonnet 54, I believe. And, or was I going to do something from Titus? I can't remember. I'll have to go back. I have a little schedule that I'm tracking this with. Because I've been watching the Julie Taymor, Anthony Hopkins, Jessica Lange, Titus. I think I'm about a third of the way through. It's quite the spectacle. I think it really effectively paints a very vivid, the story, I guess I'm speaking more now. The story of Titus Andronicus is it's a really great, it's a morality play in a lot of ways. It's a fairy tale. It's the case study on what happens when you let vengeance and revenge drive action. Everybody ends up dead, and in pies and messed up stuff like that. So, not typically my cup of tea when I, want a story to experience, but certainly illuminating, and the movie itself is, I think, I'm not usually one for spectacles, but I think that works with this type of a story, in that it's almost that kind of surrealistic imagery that hits you, and the words are almost secondary. Man, seeing Lavinia was really haunting, and not what's the word I'm looking for? Not excessive, not over the top. I didn't feel. I thought it was very appropriate for how terrible we should feel when we see Lavinia after Demetrius and Chiron have finished with her. So yeah, I will either be doing. I think I'm going to do a Titus piece, maybe an Aaron monologue or something next week, because then I go away for a weekend. I think I've done that math right. Yeah, I think I go to Ireland the weekend after that. So I'm going to be taking that weekend off, and then after I finish the Titus thing, I'm going to go into the histories, at least some of the histories, the Henry VI, Richard III. I think is what I'm going to do next. So, yeah, that'll be fun. This video is running very long, but yeah, this is very thought provoking and contemplative sonnet. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll be back next week with some more poetry. Thanks for watching.